Hark the herald angels sing, glory to the newborn King. Peace, honor, and mercy mild, God and sinners reconcile.
You know what time of year it is? It's Christmas time. I gotta tell you something real about Christmas. Fuck you if you don't like Christmas. Fuck you if you don't like Christmas. Yeah, that's right. It's not even about Jesus. It's about the holiday. You gotta respect the holiday.
Broadcasting from the beautiful Uncanny Valley, it's Christmas Town with Dave and Jeb, your source for highlights and analysis of the films of the Hallmark Network, movies made for the gentlest of people. I am Jeb Lund, a guitar pick in the first act that's gonna go off and shred in the third act, and joining me is my secret nephew, David Roth. Merry Christmas, Dave.
Merry Christmas to you, Jeb.
So we're not going to talk about how you're my secret nephew.
Not for a while.
So I want to ask, the title of this movie
is the reason why I recorded it. It's the reason why we watched it. And I feel like before you say anything else,
okay,
I'm really sorry about all that.
Yeah. Okay. So it's time for her to come home for Christmas.
Couldn't have been shorter. That's the minimum. It's what the title needed to be.
I don't like the greatest hits of the 90s stuck in my head, but this one is cumbersome, Dave.
Yes, it is. There's a lot going on here. It definitely makes you want to put on the cumbersome voice, which is not what you really want to hear from me or you, I guess. Yeah, so I recorded this I guess I'll go ahead and make a clean breast of it here. Because the title was like 4 words longer than it needed to be, and I thought that was neat. And then it had Chris Carmack, who... people from Nashville will know him, as he is known in this household, as the gay cowboy, which is the character he played in that. He's in Grey's Anatomy, and then he's the guy that said, "Welcome to the OC, bitch," in the OC.
Yeah. He was also in Shark Night. I'm just going to mention that.
I don't think I know what Shark Night is. What's that about?
I don't know either, but it looked like it went straight to the Red Box. I was very excited
seems like
about
a Red Box thing.
It was very Shark Attack 2 Megalodon kind of.
Shark Night.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he is a guy that I have enjoyed in the past, and he can sing. And it seems like the sort of thing where he's like a layup to, obviously being on Grey's Anatomy in the opening credits is like a much better gig. He'll keep doing that for as long as Grey's Anatomy continues to exist, which will be coterminous with the universe itself, as far as I can tell. But if he wanted to do Hallmark movies, I was like, yeah, this is great. He should be doing these, because this is like the sort of, he's like high wattage for this network and charming and whatever. He has like 25 lines in this movie. He's the male lead. He doesn't do very much. And the film itself is as inert as it could possibly be.
It is. If this were the sort of property where you could have Beefcake, he would have just been Beefcake. But since you can't do that, he's just sort of... I'll go ahead and spoil a little bit of a later segment. The first thing you see him do is order hot cocoa with a little bit of cinnamon while wearing his BDUs, just back from whatever theater of operations America was in at this moment.
Yeah.
Probably like 11 simultaneously.
This movie's from 2024.
Right.
So,
wait,
yeah,
really?
he's like...
No, it's 2023.
2023. All right. Well, whatever it was, Creepy Joe had already pulled... He had been removed from Afghanistan.
Because the thing I was going to tell the listeners is, we didn't cover all of them. So this is part of our 5-year plan to complete all of 2023's countdown to Christmas countdown.
We're still counting them down, Jeb. We're continuing to count them down.
Yes.
There's like 41 left.
But yeah, no, this was really kind of a step back to what we started out doing with this podcast, because we were still dead in the middle of that era. And it was, in a way, kind of a pleasant throwback, but also a very good reminder of why we were both glad that they kind of ditched that format.
Yeah. How are you going to keep them down on the farm once they've seen Buckley's Big Naturals? Do you know what I mean?
Because 2023's Time for Her to Come Home for Christmas is so much like so many of the formulaic movies we've done in the past, I feel like it's probably best just to jump right into getting the plot out of the way so we can get into the segments so we can start to tell this apart from ones that we've seen before. But to do that, we're going to need to do the cast rundown, Dave.
Yes.
Our female lead, Carly, a music teacher, is played by Shanae Grimes Beach. You might know her from Degrassi. As you mentioned, Chris Carmack's been in the OC. Welcome to him, bitch. He plays Matthew. Grace Lear from American Idol plays Riley, Matthew's little sister. Brian Markinson, who you might know as Dr. Rosen on Mad Men, or Inspector Dillon from Continuum, or from iZombie, or Supernatural, or basically every Canadian and half of all American character work, plays Pastor John.
We will return to Brian Markinson. I've got things to say about this man.
Yes.
I just think he's super. Anyway, go ahead.
He's great. His wife is played by Janet Kidder. She plays Susan. She's the person who has the genius idea to come up with a new choir scheme. Lauren Jackson, who you might know as Silverstream, the voice of Silverstream on My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic, plays Jenny, Susan's daughter, and Matt's best friend. Kathleen DeBorg plays Diane, Matthew's mother. Sarah Kate and I last saw her in Love at First Dance, episode 69, The Sex Number.
Oh.
Katrina Reynolds, another demi-veteran Hallmark actress we have missed many times, plays Alice. She's a chorus member. Jay Brazeau, the deadpan punning coroner from Garage Sale Mysteries, plays George, a senior citizen member of the choir. Josh Zaharia plays Tyler, a kid who's in the choir because he can't play ice hockey. And Madeline Kelders plays Mrs. Richards, and we last saw her in Picture a Perfect Christmas, episode 74, Agent Cody Banks 3, Destination Stepmom.
Many consider it to be the best title you've ever come up with.
Baby, we can go back and forth on a few. In fact, the next bonus, I think, will just be like, now where did I nail it the most?
Yep.
That's what we'll do for an hour.
Maybe that'll be how we amuse ourselves through the rest of this. We've already said Buckley's Big Naturals and Agent Cody Banks 3, Destination Stepmom. If we could sneak in a Not All Ponies Are Baloney, I think we can call this one a win.
I have no problem revealing more of Buckley's Big Naturals in this episode, but not in excess.
No, it's tasteful.
Is it my turn to do the rundown?
I don't remember. I might
think
be.
It is.
All right. I'm ready to do the time if you need it.
Okay, I am going to go ahead and dive on this grenade. We are going to do the expositional challenge. I have 60 seconds to get the plot out. There is a grace period. If I hit the sex number, it reverts to within the time period.
You return to the air horn zone.
Yes. If I do get it in time, then we get the air horn. If I don't, then we get the Price is Right noise. Whenever you are ready to record me, I am ready to start.
I will start when you start.
So, Carly is a music teacher in Philadelphia, and she gets an invitation to come and rehabilitate a choir in Waterford Falls, I think. We next see her on the bus as Matthew, a soldier coming home, is also getting some hot cocoa. They almost meet cute on the bus. She drops a beloved guitar pick, and he picks it up. And then we're basically in town. She is right there in her house that she's staying in, and Pastor John and his wife show up, immediately just sort of like barge into her life, and then she winds up becoming part of the town as she is doing things like family wreath making and candle making, etc. Over the course of getting to know everybody, looks like Matthew's going to fall in love with her, but he still has a thing for what's her name? Jenny. And he finds out that she's sort of interested in another guy. And then we have a fake out where it looks like maybe he's still into Jenny, and Carly bails, but then he returns her the guitar pick, and they realize they're right for each other. Also, the choir does great. I missed a bunch.
That's fine. 61 seconds, and you didn't miss that much, so go ahead and treat yourself.
All right.
Terrific.
Satisfaction. Okay, what did I miss?
I mean, not a lot. The bit that you missed, I guess that was important there, is that the reason why Carly is in town.
Right. Would you like to reveal that?
I mean, you can do it. It's the one thing in the movie that counts as an incident, so I feel like you've earned it. Go ahead.
Well, Carly is alienated from her father, and she's sad that her mother is dead. She feels like she has no family. Her father wrote her a letter when she was 18, and she never read it. And it turns out that Susan, Pastor John's wife, is her aunt. And that is why they invited Carly to come and rehabilitate the choir. In fact, Pastor John is paying for the choir out of his own pocket to hire her because they didn't want her to be alone at Christmas for the first time. not so alone that they said, hi, we're related to you, but not alone.
So this is the one thing in the movie that the rest of it is the very slow, very chaste drift of Carly towards Matthew. And then the choir does get better. She has them do some little Hallmarky team building type exercises. They go caroling and they do some other shit together. I don't know, whatever it is.
The happiest thing they can think of before singing Hark the Herald Angels Sing.
Yep. And then they sing from the heart and it's better.
Mm-hmm.
She does some of that stuff, but the real, I guess tension is the word you have to use, but it's not the right word, is that it's clear that Pastor John and Susan are cooking something up.
Right.
And they talk about Carly when she's not around a couple of times as being like, it seems like she's settling in well, which introduces, for all the times that I have cried wolf on there being a Wicker Man aspect of a Hallmark movie.
I knew you were going to say that.
Well,
I was so
finally
happy that you
fucking
did.
is one. This is real. And I know that I have no credibility in this area at this point. I shouldn't. No one should believe me. But there is a real, we know that she's not going to be put into an effigy and burned so that the bees return or whatever.
Not in this movie, at least.
Not
one
in
of the
this
summer ones, sure.
One of the, yeah. If she were on, if Lord Summer Isle had invited her to investigate. Well, it's not important.
Yeah, the countdown to the fertility thing that Hallmark does every, late spring.
They do the big vernal equinox thing every year, which I think is great. But this is so that is basically it, is that they're kind of sneaking around and they got some reason why they're invested in her, and the explanation of how they found her. I mean, you want to say that something is convincing or not, because it's not like poking holes in a Hallmark movie is kind of rude. It's just repeatedly knocking over a toddler and taking their lolly.
Right.
In this case, but they are we found your profile online and we decided that we wanted to pay your way and put you up in a house here in this small town far from where you live. And you said yes. And that's the extent to which any explanation is given. And if it's not convincing, actually, it's also why do I need to be convinced? I'm the one that chose to watch Time for Her to Come Home for Christmas. I'm gonna get what I get and not get upset. Do you know what I mean?
No, you're right. There is one moment where Susan turns to Pastor John and she says something like, "She looks just like him."
Yeah.
And you're oh, okay. And I mean, that it can't be menacing, but in the tradition of the era of Hallmark movies that we started this podcast with, back then there was almost always going to be a moment in the movie where it is so gentle that it actually comes out as sinister.
Yes. I was listening back to an old episode of ours recently, which is not something I ordinarily do, but I was trying to remember in the episode we did with Ryan Nanny, Journey to the Center of the Turf, another title said.
Thank you.
Or Journal to the Center of the Turf.
Another class where
we did,
another classic everyone loves.
We loved, and that one actually honestly is, I think, one of our funniest episodes. But I was trying to remember there was a bizarre sign in the diner, and I was trying to remember what it said, and the sign said fries. But I was going back and listening to that, and that was one where Ryan was a total Hallmark neophyte, and there was this aspect of he was it seems like this guy is actually kind of a little scary, the male lead, because he had a lot of moments where he'd get gently joshed and then would be you have no idea what I'm capable of.
Right.
And while there's none of that in here, there is the sort of thing where it's Kate and I, that was sort of how we entertained ourselves for a lot of it, was being it's not like The Wicker Man. Is it like Get Out? And I think it's a little bit like Get Out.
I was wondering if you were going to go well, I kept waiting for Pastor John to put on all his vestments and then some night vision goggles.
Yep.
And then you hear that little tuning up.
Was she in Degrassi The Next Generation? She in 103 episodes of CW's Beverly Hills 90210 reboot.
Have you been baptized?
I shouldn't get to do the Buffalo Bill voice. You've worked so hard on it and it's so good.
Well, thank you. So I don't want to get into the rating thing, but I guess we've already kind of talked about how we felt about. Fuck it. Let's just do some segments.
Yeah.
These movies tend to bleed together, so this is how we're going to help differentiate them. Our first one is usually Spot the Angel, and that's where we watch until the first ad break, and we see if anybody before then, projected as being like supernaturally angelic, secularly kind of Santa angelic, or just sort of like community angelic. And I admit that I'm stumped here, although I think there is like a perfectly good case for an easy answer, but I want to know how you handled it.
Well, it was hard because it's like, as with a lot of these movies that are this much of a like just dramatic flatline, it's basically, I'm just restating what you just said. It could have been anybody. Do you know what I mean? Like when we were watching it, like there's a bit where Matthew is singing a song at the Christmas tree lot while helping get a Christmas tree for Carly. And it was like the first, Kate sort of said it as a joke, but I was thinking, it's like, is this the first one where the male lead is actually the angel? And it's not. Mm-hmm. But it is so Treckly in that way that it could be John, it could be Susan. It's kind of Susan. Yeah. But there's not really like a lot of distinction between the humans and the angels in this.
My answer when I had to put down an answer was Susan and Pastor John.
Yes, and they do, in the sense, the classic angel shit of like setting the plot in motion. So they qualify it their way.
And they are instantly twinkly. They instantly involve her in every aspect of their lives. And there's not really any sense, at least for that first act break, that they get anything out of this other than like somebody's going to unfuck the choir. Mm-hmm. So there is at least that sort of sense of angelicism, where like it does seem to proceed entirely from generosity or just like an overweening concern for like the feelings of other people, where you're like, come on, that's not real.
Yeah.
I live here.
It's a bit much, isn't it?
I live in America, where it's my armrest.
Yes. I'm going to come back to that because I feel like that's like the most interesting and also the saddest part about the film is the way that like all of that rings weird in it, but we'll get there.
But yeah, other than that, I don't think I have a candidate. I had mixed feelings about it. I'm like, it's probably them, but is it? I don't know.
Yeah. I feel like it would need to be like 25% more plotted for there to be an angel.
That's a good call.
But yes, they're the closest that we get.
Okay, so this one I figured you're going to have a good time with. It's Eat Your Heart Out. And we haven't had a good one of these in a while. And this movie has some real callback stuff going on with Eat Your Heart Out. So this segment is where we're going to look at the food and see if it's just plain weird or if it reinforces some themes of the plot. This one is just like, literally the first thing I have in my notes for this section is just the words, "Oh my God, dude."
Yep. So that could be anything. From the start, there is a great deal of weird food. Weird food is mentioned but never shown. There's a lot of stuff that's sort of said, and I'm glad that you don't get to see them making some of it because it is like the most unholy of ideas. This is like a Hallmark movie from 2015 or something. Like, right? Yeah. It didn't have the dinner rolls, but the vibe was the same, where it just sort of had that like made by very tender aliens that had never seen a movie or known what people did.
Right. But it's definitely back in the mentality of like when you're in a food co-op and you're like, I would like a carrot, and they bring you a carrot that's like 3 feet long. And like it can't even be used as like a challenge dildo in more German forms of pornography. It's just too large. But like it is that mentality. And I was expecting at any minute, it's like, let's go get a slice of cake. And then out comes the wheelbarrow or the front end loader.
Yeah, big fucking Parmigiano Reggiano size. All right. So I'm going to guess at the thing that made you say, "Oh my fucking God, dude." But there's one that happens right after it that is mentioned, but not that I have underlined in my notes with Riley. What the fuck are you talking about? So, but I'm assuming you're talking about the giant pot pie.
I think I have all of them. What you go down your list. I'll let you know if you miss any of mine. Because we already did.
You got it.
Here's Matthew. You've seen him for 1 second. He's in his battle dress uniform, and he's like, "I'll take a hot cocoa, please, with cinnamon." Yep. And you're like, "Right on. I know where this bus is going. It's going to Christmas Town."
This motherfucker just did. That's the James Bond shaken not stirred order in the Hallmark universe. Rolling up on a bartender, being like, "I'm curious about your cocoa program.
Do you have any hot cocoa? Watch this.
Cinnamon.
2 marshmallows. That's preposterous."
So yes, that is a very fast start. Like because it's like, I don't mind there being hot cocoa in these movies. Like, at this point, I find it soothing. Like, as we've established many, many times, like, my mind is gone. Like, my ability to discern this is just a pleasing little blip as I'm on the, whatever, like, Johnny got his gun table with this movie being projected on me.
Eyes prized open and eye drops going in for full Hallmark Ludovico technique.
Yep. Yes. But at this point, I'm smiling. I'm just like, yeah, hell yeah. Get some cinnamon on that. Oh, no. Sorry. You were going to do it anyway.
It's training you never to throw up again if you see this food.
So Carly gets to her house. It's just a full-on house in Waterford Creek where she'll be staying by herself. And Pastor John and Susan come by with a poinsettia and just a chicken pot pie the size of an apple pie. An enormous, crusty, golden, honestly kind of good-looking chicken pot pie. But how big are chicken pot pies supposed to be, Jeb? This is not my food way.
Honestly, I don't know. I didn't grow up eating them. To me, I always assumed they were kind of like the size of like when you get a pecan tart or something.
Yeah.
It's like a single serving thing. But I mean, I guess you can do it like Amish style where everybody grabs a slice and you hope that the broth or do they put like pectin in the broth to thicken it? I have no idea.
Thicker. Like, I don't know if it's pectin. It probably isn't pectin that does it, but it's
probably
like, there's
potato flour.
It's glutinous in there. I think we're adults. We can use words like glutinous to describe the food that we're discussing here. So yes, I learned that from The Simpsons anyway. Yeah,
poppin' fresh.
You're doing a lot of voice work in this one.
Glutinous little doughboy. I owe my fine health to your triple bleached goo. Sorry.
No, don't apologize. You did the right thing. Anyway, so that's basically, just have to imagine that in the voice of a Canadian television actress. That's what she says when she gets a heap and helping of the chicken pot pie and they sort of start kicking it around.
I think you're kind of like underselling a part of this too, is they show up at her front doorstep and are like, chicken pot pie. And she's like, oh, sure, come in. And then they sit down and eat it with her.
Yeah.
Which, whenever I've given people food, unless it's like a pizza, it's like, that's your food now.
Yep.
I don't have to have any of it. If I wanted it, I would have kept it for myself, but I'm giving it to you. But they're pretty much like, well, let's just stay and eat, honey.
Yeah, that is inviting yourself over for dinner.
That is, yes. Like, just because you opened the door with the pot pie doesn't mean you didn't walk in after.
Yeah, it's like vampire rules, where it's like as soon as they cross the threshold with the pot pie, you're their choir Renfield, and you basically have to do whatever it is they send you scampering hideously about to do.
Picturing Tom Waits in this movie now, but keep going.
Yeah, no, it's good. Imagining him in any of these, eating a bug and be like,
oh, Merry Christmas.
Yeah, maybe we can use a Christmas card from a hooker in Minneapolis as one of our old bumper musics here.
David, for Christ's sake.
We got to spice this thing up, Jeb. So the bit that I underlined as being the what the fuck are you talking about Riley bit. So Riley is Grace Lear, the very charming American Idol contestant who is Matthew's sister in this. And after he gets home and everybody's really happy to see him and they want to get to the diner in town, and Riley is instantly like, eggnog pancakes at the Orchard? And not an item. Can't do it. And you must say eggnog French toast. Sure. I don't think that eggnog pancakes can exist.
Well, I mean, I think they can, but
you'd
in the same way...
instead of using buttermilk, you'd use eggnog?
I get what I'm trying to say is it would be sort of like when I made Campbell's condensed soup with a can of vodka, right? Like, you can do it. Is it going to taste at all edible? I don't think so.
I don't know. I really don't know.
But like the thing with the vodka and your chicken noodle, or your chicken and stars is at least it's going to get you fucked up. I don't know what this eggnog does because I'm pretty sure it's not like, okay, do you want the rum pancakes?
Yeah. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of diner is this?
Well, apparently it's like the everything diner. It's like, what's his name? The guy, Babu from The Simpsons? From Seinfeld that has the corned beef or biryani.
Yeah. Like, this is, which again, it's like one of the magical things about New York City. I don't know much about Waterford Creek. Mm-hmm. It might be that it's a similar food scene there. But yes,
they have a lot of eggnog trucks, Dave. It's not so much like the downtown core isn't foodie, but definitely you go out to the breweries.
Oh yeah, on the ring roads. Give me some of yours though, because I'm like, I feel like there is a lot of weird food, but I also don't want to like overstate it and harp on everything.
No, you've caught all of it. It's the eggnog pancakes. Then he says later, about 12 minutes later,
We still need to catch up. Pie at the Orchard? I'm off gluten, but yes, of course.
Red flag on Jenny there. That's when you know that this relationship is not going to work out.
Yeah. Why are you off gluten? You're best friends with him. You can tell him if you have celiac.
Yeah.
If you don't, why are you off gluten? Anyway.
Putting on airs, going to the big city or whatever, which we later find out is the case.
And 29 minutes in, we have Jenny telling Matt, letting him down easy, Barclay's drugstore closed down. And he says,
Did your mom tell you that Barclay's drugstore closed down?
What? No.
Yes, unfortunately, about 6 months ago. I hear it's becoming a seafood restaurant.
I spent the last few days dreaming of one of their peppermint egg creams.
Yeah.
I don't think that's real either.
No, I don't think it'd be really hard to do. So egg cream is one of those things where, to be fair, there is a scene, I guess this is qualified as a spoiler alert,
No.
where everybody makes egg creams together as a team building exercise that Carly puts together to benefit Matthew, who is despondent about the loss of his favorite drink. And if you heard egg cream, you would think that's some real Hallmark shit, because those are two things that every bit of Hallmark food have in them.
Mhm.
But an actual egg cream is like a weird Jewish New York thing, and it's basically seltzer and chocolate syrup. There's no egg or cream in it, which Carly mentions as sort of in passing. It's one of the few joke-shaped moments in the film. So we see them making the egg creams. It's not exactly clear how the peppermint is introduced, but we see people putting sprinkles in the egg cream, kind of, I guess, for a goyish boba effect. Really, just a very confusing drink. And then it's like confusing. It's one of those things where you say like eggnog pancakes. Look, I don't like it, but you're not making me see them.
Right.
When we see the peppermint egg cream getting put together, it becomes somehow more implausible than if we'd just been asked to believe that it was a thing.
Wouldn't it just kind of taste like an Andes candy, though?
Yes,
like as a
it
drink?
certainly would.
Yeah, I don't know how much I want to swallow something that feels that mentholated,
No.
flavor-wise. But I mean, I guess you could make a case for there is a palate out there. There are a number of palates out there that would respond well to it. I just never heard it said. And again, kind of my experience with it in real life and then also on this show has been like, this is just a New York thing.
Yeah, and it's like not a luxury thing either. It's like a weird thing that you get if you're too lactose intolerant to enjoy a milkshake.
Yeah.
But you want a little bit of Bosco chocolate syrup in your life.
Well, since we brought up the existence of New York and egg creams and alluded to podcasts as yet unreleased,
Is this a Jewish segment? We're going to do the Spud of the Jew.
let's talk about the Hallmark diaspora, shall we? No, it's the Hallmark Expanded Universe. It's the other Hallmark movies that could intersect with this one, either characters that could migrate from here to there or from there to here, or events that you could see happening in movies that we've already experienced. This one was kind of a poser for me. I wasn't really sure where we were. Waterford Falls could be like, that sounds like it's 8 different towns in Connecticut, but I don't
Yes.
think we're in Connecticut.
Yeah, so it's unclear, even by Hallmark standards, where we are. Carly is supposed to be in Philadelphia,
Yo.
and then she gets on a bus there that seems to terminate in Waterford Creek or Falls or whatever it's called. That implies that it's like taking a SEPTA thing to the end of the line. So you're like within 40 miles or whatever, but it's like an outer ring bedroom community or something like that.
Mhm.
Either way, it's confusing. It is, scrupulously fingerprint free in the way that all sort of Hallmark Christmas movie communities are. And the town itself is impossible to parse. It has a record store with a massive Christmas section. It has an outdoor coffee shop. It has a Christmas tree lot. I guess that could be Connecticut, but it's not 100% clear.
Mhm.
I found this a difficult question because this movie is so smooth and featureless that it's like the answer could be any other Hallmark movie, but there's nothing that really like grabbed me. Even, at this point, we've seen enough of this stuff that like it doesn't need to be very grabby to stick at this point. Like I've got a lot of references and this one just sailed right through.
Yeah, I eventually just kind of had to give up on finding any real firm terra for this.
Yep.
The fact that we started out in Pennsylvania and the fascination with egg creams made me think that this is like a fairly, for lack of a better term, like Judaicized enclave of PA. So I just want to believe that this is where the people of Holiday Date are.
Okay.
I guess where they might have been poisoned by their crypto Jew future son-in-law from episode 78. He didn't understand a hammer.
He didn't understand a hammer.
He couldn't do it, Dave. He could not understand the hammer.
He didn't know what it was. And, and that's a skill issue, but that's coaching too.
It's got to be beaten into him, Dave.
Everything looks like a nail, Mike.
All right.
Yeah, but that's like when we're reaching back, that is another one. That's, I think, the last of the truly uncanny. The thing that and again, these episodes will eventually come out. The Hallmark Hanukkah movies have been like better than average, like a tick or 2 ticks better than average, like on balance, I think. And I don't know why that is, but that was the last of, I think, like the really deranged Hanukkah Hallmark movies. Hopefully the last forever. And this one is sort of a similar throwback to a stranger era of Hallmark filmmaking.
Well, consonant with the other throwbacks that we have in structure, I feel like we have a classic overdetermined moment in this one. In that case, when we're talking about overdetermination or overdeterminacy in Hallmark, we're talking about when we know what the themes and the stakes are, and Hallmark has established it so plainly that there's no need to put a thumb on the scale, and yet there is a moment that is not only sort of destined to happen by the plot, but also they just sort of do a full, not a fun air horn, more of a like, let's get your attention or blow out an eardrum air horn. Like, this is important. This is when it's happening. Do you agree with me, or did you think that they skipped past it, or did we land on the same thing?
No, there's a lot. But give me yours. I think that I am on the same page with you.
As is generally the case with these ones that have that kind of plot overdeterminacy, there's a hinge point almost directly halfway through the movie. In this case, it's just a little, like a minute or two over. And that's where Diane, Matt's mom, is sitting down at the table, and he sits down with her. And he basically says, like, oh, it seems like Jenny, who I've had a crush on and who's been my best friend forever, is moving on. And Diane very sagely says,
people change, grow apart. Others grow together. Sometimes you need to let go of a dream so another one can take its place.
I'm looking at that line in my notes right now. This is, I think it's very rare. This has definitely been in the past. Like, we've had the same answer. I want to make clear that I was not like trying to copy off Jeb's work here. It makes me happy that we've synchronized our cycles to this extent.
Thank you. No, and he's right. I don't share. I'm very miserly with my observations. Frankly, I don't even like talking about them on tape, but I've compromised.
Yeah, it's very difficult. Jeff and I do not have a relationship outside of this podcast. We get on here, we do our work, and it's over. We do our little fucking Mike and the Mad Dog voices. That's all we want. And I think that in this case, it is nice that we're on top of this. The one bit I'll add to this scene, which is, yes, extremely underlined, I think the correct choice for this, is that she comes down and finds him, his mom finds Matthew at the table enjoying some eggnog, like the eggnog carton with the eggnog label is just like sitting out. Like he just like the way that like a character, the way that like Russell Crowe in The Good Guys at the end has just ordered the bottle at the bar.
Right. Yeah. Just
like
leave
in this
the carton.
Case, yeah. But the idea, and so she finds him looking through a photo album and drinking eggnog at night, which is like a very embarrassing way to be discovered by your mom.
I mean, it's also, I would say, the drinkable equivalent of 62 slices of American cheese.
It is 100%. Couldn't sleep. Decided I would have every type of dairy at once.
To be honest, I don't really want to do a whole lot with the first 2 hours of tomorrow. So
Figured I'd lock that in by pouring myself a frosty mug. She's like, do you mind if I join you? Which is amazing too. Again, the idea of being like, somebody, they're in crisis. Like, I want to bond with them. The only way to do that is to drink 1,100 calories worth of dairy.
I thought it was touching that they did have the little metal bar stoppers on the nog, so he could pour it out by shot. right?
Yep. You can't. It's for counting drinks. I mean, it's a business thing. You can't be giving that stuff away.
Just a midden of like upturned little shot glasses in front of him, like Karen Allen in Nepal. There was another bit I do have to mention where like Diane's delivery is just sort of Vedic calm,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like here arriveth the lesson. But we have another bit at about an hour and 5 minutes into it. Matt learns that all this time, you know, Riley says, oh, hey, that thing you've been carrying all this time, that's Carly's guitar pick. And Diane just like trying to rub it in, even though nobody needs it rubbed in, but it's just like, it's so knowing, it's smug. She's like,
I think this is Carly's. She mentioned losing one just like it. It means a lot to her.
Isn't that funny? You have been carrying it around for weeks and had no idea.
Yes, Mom. It's very fun.
I'm laughing, Ma.
Yeah. Yeah, terrific. All right.
So we are at crossover, and that's where we're going to talk about entertaining or just better quality films or TV shows or documentaries or just real life, but something that's mainstream and not Hallmark that you could port these characters into, or maybe vice versa. David, this one also struck me as particularly difficult.
Yeah.
I just don't know what to do with these people. I don't know. I have two very cop-out answers, so I hope that you have better ones.
You've already heard one of them. I mean, it is basically like any of these things where it's like a community is suspiciously welcoming to an outsider. It's like, I've only got so many answers there.
Yeah.
The weirdest of the ones is her showing up that I think this is probably a stretch. Pastor John gets a lot of the better lines in the movie. He's sort of wise and, you know, understands the purpose of Christmas and also is secretly controlling and manipulating all of the characters within the film along with his wife. I kept trying to come up with a way to make this like Todd Haynes' Safe, which is one of my favorite movies, and I gave up. I just don't think there's there. The idea of like Sinead Grimes looking at herself in the mirror at the end of it and being all fucked up and being like, I really do love Christmas. I really do love Christmas. It's like, there you go. You've heard the gag. I just don't think that it's earned. The Get Out comp makes more sense, but it still doesn't exactly add up. It would need to be like 25% more a movie for this to be an easier question to answer.
In my case, the singing was, I guess, what my brain latched onto, and I don't like musicals.
Yeah.
I just don't.
I have a hard time with it too.
I don't like people who talk and then burst into song. I think that's demented behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And then like talk singing on like a piano chord.
Worse. Hate it more.
Yeah, it's even worse. I can't work with that. So any movie that seemed particularly musical, I mean, like I couldn't, School of Rock. I couldn't do anything with that. I don't know shit about Mr. Holland's Opus. So like all I could think of was like Mr. Holland's kid, like taking benzos and saying shitty stuff on Twitter. That's nobody else is going to get that.
They call it the most accursed crossover ever invented.
So the only thing I could think of was like, well, I just want to sully these people. I want to have them deal with the real world where they're not like, well, I'm not doing gluten, but I am having eggnog pancakes. Fuck you. Glee.
Yep.
Because everyone in Glee seemed insane.
Yes.
And also it was on Fox, and it was, the accelerated crisis of big cast TV soap opera where like everybody's losing their virginity or becoming addicted to drugs like every other episode. And I just thought like
Grey's Anatomy has similar problems where it's just like every 3 episodes someone dies in a helicopter crash and you're like, we don't need to do that, do you? But they kind of do. Those are the rules.
Yeah, so I just wanted to see that kind of chaos introduced in this world, sort of like Eris rolling the ball into the halls of Olympus and then watching everybody dive on it. That was just, like we need something that's going to impurify this and take them out of like the Hallmark Eden and then give them like opioid dependency.
You know what a lot of the problem is here, and it's not a problem necessarily, it's the type of movie that it is that this sort of story has familiar beats, but it has to have some sort of stakes. Like the idea of like a coach getting called in and whipping a team into shape, and then they go win a championship or they learn something about themselves and losing it or whatever. They're still making movies like that. Like the apparently impossibly poor Taika Waititi movie last year was like that. I mean, which was about like rugby or something and had Michael Fassbender in it, and everybody was kind of like, what the fuck is even happening here? The Waititi difference. But in this instance, there are no Like, there's not a choir competition that they're trying to win or compete in. The stakes are, the choir is the worst thing you've ever heard. You hear them sing an entire song early in the movie, and it sucks. And then they get to being okay by Christmas Eve. That's the goal, is to become like acceptable enough not to ruin church.
And they meet that goal when they're caroling before even the final scene. Like their caroling is great. And that seems to be what loosens them up and allows them to sort of like unlock naturally flowing with the beat and et cetera. So like the stakes are eliminated before they are met.
Yeah.
Such as
and
they
I'm not
exist.
like complaining that this isn't more like Coach Carter or whatever. I don't even know what happens in that. I just know it involves a coach. The fact that it has, again, that it's like that sort of old-timey Hallmark sludge where it's just on the lazy river of hot cocoa just bobbing along. There are no rapids. Like, there is no stakes. There is no end point. Like, it is just sort of this and nothing but this.
Yeah.
It makes it very hard to cross it over into movies that have like the rules of movies in mind.
Well, I imagine it will come as no surprise to those listening that there is an android in this. We're going to do the Hallmark Voight-Kampff test. This was inspired by listener Josh Burgle, who wrote in to suggest if a male lead in a movie were to encounter a tortoise flipped over in the desert and you think he might just feed that tortoise Christmas cookies, he might be a Hallmark replicant. David, I think there is at least for me, there was a very clear skin job in this. Did you have one?
There's a lot of competition. I think this is that Matthew is kind of an android lead.
Okay.
Just in the sense that he is like 100% opaque. There's no sense of like desire or chemistry or anything there. He's just kind of like moving along, and he's like, I want to marry someone and move into this particular house. And then like the person he wanted to marry wanted to have a life outside of town. And then he's like, now I will marry her and move into this particular house.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what it was about Jenny that was so compelling. He went and saw her right away, but then they didn't really seem to stick together much through the course of the movie. They didn't have, he could have been having most of these scenes with other people where maybe you hit an awkward beat and they could have just had a text tone, and he pulls out his phone and it's clear he's talking to her. But there's no way for Carly, given what we've seen, for her to assume that there is anything between Jenny and Matt. And yet one of the first things she says after meeting Jenny is like, so how long have you had a thing for her? And it's like, what thing? Like, what are you even detecting?
Like, you guys seem like distant cousins.
Like, cute enough to be a problem, but
she's very pretty, and she has that kind of like Hallmark charm to her. But yes, there's not a sense there in either case that it is just a real mushing your Barbie and Ken together sort of energy.
Yeah.
So who's your bot?
Alice, the African-American member of the choir, and she is just very enthusiastic and very much seems like an average Hallmark wine mom character that they said, okay, well, this is the role that the person of color in the cast will get. And they didn't really sort of tweak it for her. So the enthusiasm is just that she has, like the tapped into Christmas and tapped into the choir enthusiasm she has is entirely plot driven. It doesn't seem to have anything to do with her. And then we get a moment almost an hour in where she runs over to help Matt, who is putting a star on the tree at the, I can't remember the kid who can't play ice hockey.
Tyler.
Tyler, whatever.
Tyler. Not Kyler is the guy that can't stand being around Cliff Kingsbury. Different dude.
Right. Yeah. He's too busy playing video games to do the playbook. Yeah. Tyler's dad is overseas. He's stationed overseas. He's in the Marines, and everybody needs to pitch in and help him out because he's just overwhelmed and he's a kid. So they help him with his chores and they help decorate the house. And so Matt is doing the tree, and Alice sees him on a step stool, and she runs over and she's like, oh, safety first. And then just like looks at what Carly's doing and just says,
she really is one of a kind. Some people come into our world and make things a little brighter.
And like, yeah, maybe Matt is more of a replicant, but like there is nothing human, I think, about Alice. Like she exists to deliver that and to deliver choir enthusiasm, and no other part of her is people.
That is 100% fair. It does. I mean, this is, again, the problem with this sort of thing is that, like, it just is a few more drops of, I don't even need, realism is not the word I'm looking for. Just something more human-esque, you know, in the characterizations. And this isn't a problem, but yes, this is it. Like, the lady does what she can with it, you know, like she sings well, she's a fun presence or whatever. But yes, this character is there to, like, sing a little bit too much, be a little bit too excited about stuff in every instance where she is presented with a thing to be excited about, and that is that. And then presumably as soon as she wanders off screen, powers down, like just on some and that's that.
Okay, so who's the real villain? Did you have a real villain?
Oh, I don't think there is a real villain. Is there? I mean, even then, it's like the idea of like there are no structural forces here. I was like looking forward to it when they were, I mean, looking forward to it. So there's like the first meeting that Carly has with after she hears the choir sing. She has a funny bit there where she's talking to Pastor John and she's like, with all due respect, what happened? Like, who made them like this? Like, who told you that this is what a choir should be? And I was like, not exactly on the edge of my seat. Like, this was like 20 minutes into the movie and I already knew, I think at that point, what I was in for. But I wasn't kind of going to be like, did the factory close down? Like, give me something here.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, the old choir teacher left and, you know, kind of just everybody, weren't paying as much attention to it anymore. And so the idea of like a choir of like voices, in this case, I mean, this is like a thread that kind of runs through the movie of people that are in a lot of ways grieving different things that needs to learn to sing together is like, it's not a bad idea for a movie, you know, and it kind of gives you this obvious angle into it where it could be any number of things. Like it could be the sort of the way that being sad makes you lonesome, like cuts you off from other people. It could be grief. It could be some other sort of structural thing. The idea of like community atrophying. So all these people are singing, but they can't hear or aren't listening to everybody else. Any of that is there. And like, believe me, I would have like been grateful for a thimbleful of any of it because I would have had an answer for this and it would have given me something more to care about. But none of it is even really gestured at. Mm-hmm. So like I could say any of those things, but I feel like that would be a lie.
So let me hit you with a, I don't know, post-structural answer. I think the real villain of this movie is
freaking Gilles Deleuze over here. This fucking guy. Unbelievable.
But they had a friggin' guitar solo. Okay. It's this movie.
Oh,
the villain of this movie is this movie. That's my contention. So let me walk you through this. The ethos of this movie is basically something Matt says at the very beginning when Riley's going to try out for the choir. He says, "Good things happen when you're brave enough to put yourself out there." And that jumped out at me because that's like every Hallmark movie's lesson. But that's not true in this. You can argue that this movie never happens if people actually try that. If Carly's dad tries being a parent, this movie doesn't happen. If Matt or Jenny just try telling each other how they feel when they're younger, when they have a chance, because they have a conversation about, hey, did you want to? And it turns out both of them wanted to.
Yep.
This movie doesn't exist. Or if Susan comes clean about being Carly's aunt before hiring her and gets told off with something like, if you could find me now, that means you could have found me all this time. And instead you were AWOL until I was 35. Fuck you. This movie doesn't happen. But Carly's dad did put himself out there. He tried to reconcile when she was 18, and she wouldn't even read his letter. And then Carly finds her family not by putting herself out there, instead by having her family drag her into their lives by subterfuge. So any attempt to default back to the moral this movie is giving us is invalidated by the movie, which complicates and like undoes its message. So the movie is the villain because it can't even live up to itself.
That's a good answer. That's a very good answer. I also think it's one of those things where like Hallmark can like accidentally back into, I'm trying to remember the name of it. Do you remember the movie where Brooke Dorsey got sucked into some imaginary town and it was like all the people in it were like angels and demons, but in like a very sort of benign type of way?
Yeah, that was a Fabled Holiday. That was episode 123, Fairies, Dr. Weir, things of that nature.
Yes. So we're really doing a great job getting titles into this episode. Keep patting
Yeah.
ourselves on the back or whatever. But
There's
that
no
was one-
audio SEO, but if there were, we'd be
our
crushing it.
backlinks game is popping right now. But that was another one where it seemed like Hallmark was kind of like acknowledging the many, many weird tropes of the Hallmark experience and sort of like aware of how stilted the stuff is, but they can't. Not only can they not land it, like in order to tell the story, in order to hit the basic sort of like Hallmark marks, they can't really acknowledge it. And so I think in this case, like, yes, you're exactly right that it's not just that like all of the basic Hallmark sort of exhortations to like put yourself out there and take a chance or whatever, that every bit of that rings false. It is also like, it doesn't cohere enough to like feel like there's a critique in it either. Like it is just, it feels AI generated to a certain extent, that this is like a procedurally generated film in which like at every point an algorithm is doing the thing that would be, having consumed hundreds of other Hallmark movies, the likeliest thing to follow the thing that had happened before, regardless of whether it relates.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you gave a good answer there, because this one's hard. This is like kind of a challenging movie to talk about.
Okay, well, let's do the last difficult part of this then. That's rating the movie. As our listeners know, we have a 5-star rating system. 5 stars, it could be a family movie released in theaters, maybe burned off in winter. 4 stars is the juiciest taco, named after the best food in Vancouver's wettest park. 3 stars, there are some solids. 2 stars, very soft cheese. 1 star, sugary and extremely wet. How did you feel about it ultimately, numerically, David?
So I think it's a 2.
Hey, same.
Yeah. And I think it's like the reason it's not lower is mostly, I guess, Shanae Grimes does a good job. Brian Parkinson does, I think, a very good job, you know, hitting the right level of twinkle. I think that some of the attempts to deal with like grieving are at least earnest, but it is just very sluggish. We've kind of hit we're in a little bit of a slump with these. I feel like we've been on
it's just a
lot.
gully.
It's we're in a little bit of a wadi. There's just a lot of 2s. But this one, I'm glad that you weren't lower. And obviously, I don't understand how you could have been any higher.
Well, you know, that's funny. As I actually thought, well, maybe this is a strict 2.5 because it is.
What is the dead center?
Yeah, dead center. Because for the same reasons I think you had, I think the core cast is great. I think Shanae Grimes Beach is great. I think Chris Carmack's great. Brian Markinson and Janet Kidder are great. And it's trying to be funny where it can, but because it's stuck in a classic Hallmark formula, it won't let a lot of humor out.
Yeah.
And so the movie traps itself, and it traps the good acting in it within such a narrow frame Hallmark movie that all the stuff that makes us human, besides family and Christmas, and that has started to emerge in their movies in the last 2 years, gets crowded out. And so like if, you know, maybe there'd been more humor or maybe less of a sort of like baton death march toward the Hallmark conclusion, I could give it a straight 2.5. But even though it's hitting its marks, I think it just didn't aim high enough overall or far enough to like make it worth having hit the target. So
yeah,
2.
In some ways, it also makes me appreciate the sort of like, we've watched some less satisfying, like Miss Christmas Comes to Town was not like a huge winner of a movie, but the ways in which contempo Hallmark movies are weird now is better than this.
Yeah.
There's still strange, sort of like 3/4 of a movie type movie experiences, but they're trying to do different shit than this. This one feels like the old program being run on new hardware.
Yeah. Well, screw it. We did it. Let's just go get to the silly stuff that didn't belong anywhere else. It's The Leftovers. And David, I know you're going to have an IMDb dive, but I do want to throw out one little detail that I caught without IMDb that qualifies as within that brief. The words executive producer Blake Shelton
They're calling it the opposite of cellar door. Yeah. You're hearing Christmas music at the beginning. There's a lot of Christmas music in this movie. Most of it is not very good. Some of it is very weird. We can talk about that in a moment. But yes, when you see that credit, you're kind of like, oh boy, like, how good could this possibly be? And the answer we now know is like roughly this good.
Yeah, 2.
Do you think he was active on set? Do you think he was wearing like Bob Evans glasses, like yelling at people?
Wearing a dickie? Yeah, I don't know.
Yes.
I just saw that name and like I don't like to admit that some parts of Home Improvement are accurate about men, but I did admit it kind of like,
yeah. Sometimes you got to hit them with the sound when you see stuff, and that's when it's bringing the Tim Allen up out of you.
Yeah,
brother, that is not anywhere you want to be. In the past, I've had Christmas songs in these where I'm like, what the fuck is this? They make this up, and you're like, no, It's a Marshmallow World in the Winter, made famous by Robert Goulet. That's a classic.
Yeah.
So there's there's a song that Sinead Grimes has the choir sing, which is sort of her own composition, but there's a lot of like goofs on Christmas music in this. They wind up doing a lot of like, Hark the Herald Angels Sing, songs like that are good, and I never am unhappy to hear them. The Christmas record swap. What'd you make of all that? What'd you make of the record store with all the Christmas albums in it?
Like you, I noticed that the Christmas section seemed to be the entire record store.
Yeah.
I also liked the fact that I checked they were fake Christmas albums because I was like, I don't know if I want to buy that one. But the bit where she turns around and she's asking for his verdict and says,
I'm actually glad you're here. That Christmas feeling or Christmas time's coming.
Are you buying a gift for someone?
Every Christmas, my mom and I would go to the record shop in town and try to find a holiday album that we'd never, ever heard before. I mean, anyone could put on Bing or Ella, but have you ever trimmed a tree to Accordion to Steve's Christmas Polka?
Accordion to Steve, that's the most ambitious joke in the film. And while it does not land, I do have to like sort of give it the, Jeremiah Johnson nodding gif response. Good for you, Nothing ventured, nothing gained. You got to put yourself out there, blah, 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 blah. But yes, Accordion to Steve is amazing. There's a song, there's a lot of fake Bublé in Hallmark. This one is a weirdly like kind of a fake John Pizzarelli thing. So it's like a jazz guitar, kind of guy with a nasal voice at one point sings a line that I have written down here. Santa is my favorite kind of guy, which I agree.
The North Pole. It's a hell of a town. Fingers snapping.
No one knows the Foxwoods theme song. You just have to take my word for it that this thing that played after Nets games on the radio when I was a child was like one of the most formative musical experiences of my life. So that's what it sort of is. If you wanted to hang some tinsel on that song, that's the Santa is my favorite kind of guy part. There's some other lyrics that I was writing down that were, hang on, let me just scroll back up here. Red and green sweaters and flannels, friends and family make Christmas what it is, the smell of cookie dough and flowers. There's just a lot of stuff in some of these songs, the like sort of either original to this or like public domain Hallmarky things.
Yeah.
That it can't be that expensive to get a version of Jingle Bells in your movie, right? Like that's public domain at this point.
I feel like these were things that maybe executive producer Blake Shelton held the publishing rights to.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
So maybe they got access to these songs because they weren't going to have to pay the full licensing rate for them because he wanted the exposure. So since it would be paid directly to him, he saves them money on the deal and gets the bump. I don't know.
Classic Blake Shelton behavior.
It's
imagining him roaring in his office while wearing a military uniform like Michael Lerner and Barton Fink. We're double dipping. Santa is my favorite type of guy as it made me a red cent. Calm down, Blake.
I did not have many leftovers myself. I'm pretty certain that this episode will open up with the bad choir performance. I just want to underline that it is exactly the sort of bad choir performance you get from a bunch of people who know how to sing and don't know how to sing badly.
Yep.
So they're just doing good singing, but in all the wrong places, except for a couple people who can really hit like a flat or a sour note. But it is just like, it is not a natural chaos. And I was sort of expecting, as it got more like affectedly cacophonic, to have like a little sort of like Liberate Tuta Met Ex Inferis kind of like playing somewhere in it.
Sadly, no, there's no. That is a perfect description of it, because it is, obviously everybody will have heard it. It sounds terrible, but it doesn't sound convincing. Like, it's convincingly bad, but I'm also like, that's not what a bad choir would sound like.
Yeah. There's too much intent behind the badness. It's like, no, you wouldn't have done that on purpose.
Yeah.
No, you didn't get here accidentally. This was your design.
So Grace Lear's presence in this is definitely all leading up to her having this solo, which winds up, she's a good singer. She, I guess, did well on American Idol, but it's like 30 seconds of this. The rest of it, she's like a charming enough presence. This is her first movie. She's not an actor, but she could make a million of these if she wanted. Like, it's definitely, she's more pleasing of the Hallmark non-actor performances that we've seen. She's definitely better than the like Duck Dynasty kid that was in one or whatever. The only other bit that I would say that's worth mentioning, you mentioned all of Brian Parkinson's many distinguished credits and all the sort of the other ones. The movie's director, Ali Liebert, is a very busy Hallmark actress that we have seen before, and she is just now breaking into directing these.
Good for her.
I can't say that I see, much. It's a pretty weesh script here, so there's only so much that anyone could do with it. Like, I don't think that Jonathan Demme would have made a 3-star Hallmark movie out of this. So,
yeah.
But I'm always happy to see, like, when people that, sort of have made a lot of money or spent a lot of time within the Hallmark industrial complex are able to carve out a new identity in it. So shout out to Ali Liebert. Good luck to you.
Yeah. Well, the only other one I had, and this is another thing that happens pretty much right at the start and kind of sets the tone for you, is after getting their cocoa with cinnamon and getting on the bus, Carly sits in the row in front of Matt, and Matt is sitting with an older woman, retirement age, and he is the guy on the bus who will not stop talking to you. And what he's doing is he's showing her multiple pictures of his sister's Christmas tree, like after the lot, going into the base, realizing it's crooked, and then he says,
"The star is my favorite part."
And I'm watching it and I'm like, thank you, bus person.
Yeah.
If you don't know who that guy on the bus is, it's you.
You're the guy that's like, I like to put the angel on the highest bough.
That's normally where I put a shining star, but
well, it's a matter of taste. All right, yes, there's a bunch of wild Christmas tree behavior in this. Matthew gets Carly a Christmas tree at the behest of the clergyman manipulating everybody's actions in this, and then he brings it into her house. He's carrying it like a fucking loaf of bread. Like, he's not being very careful with it.
Yep.
They put it in the little Christmas tree holder, and it's still got the net on it. You don't do that, right? Is that like standard operating procedure? I've only set up a few Christmas trees in my life, and that was not how we did it.
Actually, it makes it a lot easier, right? Because if you're putting it in one of those adjustable ones where, you hold down the lever and it's loose, and then you let the lever go and it snaps in place, because it's sort of still bundled together, you can see a lot more, where the trunk is going, right? You can see whether it's straight or not. But on the whole, actually, I was pleased, because while you didn't get to see all of that Christmas tree lot, like, he didn't pick like a completely busted tree for her in the way that in years past, like, he would have taken the one that like had mange on one side, or just grabbed the one in front, and like nobody would have checked on anything else. But you get the sense that they had actually been doing some comparison shopping before they settled on this one. And then once they did, he's just like, yep, throwing that in the baler, yanking it in the house, put it up against the wall, we're done.
Maybe that's where the progress is in this, is that like it's less of that old Hallmark feeling where you could like hear the director being like, let's get this fucking tree on the move. This movie is going to be on the air in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, in this case, it's at least, yes, you're right. The tree work is excellent. The rest of it, I don't know.
Yeah. I will say before we go, this is my last note here, Dave. I was disappointed that we had so much of the movie dedicated to the presence of Pastor John. And at no point did we discuss his centuries of leading a Nestorian Christian kingdom hidden somewhere in the middle of Asia. And I thought that's what the story should have been here.
Yes. Prester Johns. Canonically, a very important figure in the Hallmark universe. I won't bore you with the scholarship on this.
That's right. It's not that kind of podcast. But if you want to spend $3 per month, we'll reveal all the secrets on the bonus.
When we go Tides of History mode on that ass.
Come enjoy the hermetic mysteries of the Hallmark universe.
You got to pay, but there's a lot of mysteries.
Yeah, no, that's the first rite that you have to complete. You're not going to hear all of it until you get your vestments.
It's just good business.
That's
All right. Well, we'll watch a better one next time.
Okay. Merry Christmas, Dave.
Merry Christmas to you. Bye.
Bye. This episode of Pick Me and the Ant Seekers live at Wedlock was executive produced by Mac Mashburn, Big Joe D, and all our friends down at the Jasper Group LLC, and by you, the Patreon donor, in conjunction with Vigorous Marvin. Vigorous Marvin. Welcome to OK, bitch. Special thanks today to Drew Fairweather, a.k.a. Crudbump, for our theme music, and to Chris Collingwood of Look Park and Fountains of Wayne for all the rest, except where specified in the show notes. Like, subscribe, rate, and review us. It helps people to find the show, and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/itschristmastown for around 90 hours of bonus material, including Fever Dream, our public health breakdown, and a day's worth of Hallmark podcasts, plunked down 10 cents per day at patreon.com/thisweekinatrocity. Thanks for listening. Merry Christmas, and talk to you soon.
Next best thing. We go on TV and sing, sing, sing. And we're sending our love down the well. All the way down.
Fucking thing sucks.
And that's that.